Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Uncorked with Funny Wine Girl. This is Janine Luby, aka Funny Wine Girl. And if you've been listening, and I hope you have, and if you haven't, shame on you. No, if you haven't, I'm going to tell you what September has been like on the podcast. I turned 50 on September 3rd. Woohoo! And I like celebrating birthdays, so I am not afraid of my age. So, because of that, I wanted to honor and celebrate other women, in their 50s throughout the whole month of September. So each week you will be hearing from, and you can go back and take a listen. We've had Mindy Hill, who's a great runner, yoga instructor, positive person, Terry Granahan, longtime stand-up comedian who talks about her picky eating and how that led her to plant-based eating. And this week's guest, who I'll introduce in a few seconds. So we're going to be talking about a heavy topic today, and hopefully we will be able to lighten things up a little bit so that you can laugh. And by no means is that meant to dilute the importance of the topic, but we all could use a good laugh. So without further ado, I would like to introduce this week's guest, Marie Onukiavage, who is the executive director of Northeastern Pennsylvania's chapter of NAMI, National Alliance on Mental Illness. September is Suicide Prevention Month. And today, I think we said that we're recording this today, September 10th, on World Suicide Prevention Day, I believe. So welcome, Marie.
Hello. Thank you for having me in this with all of the other fabulous women in their 50s, but also on this very important day that's very important to the work that I do with NAMI.
Yeah, and it's there's so many different, and there's during the week and the day and the month. So, but we talk about these recognitions and observances, and while they're important because they bring light to different things, we know, I think now more than ever, that this is not something that can be boxed into a day, a week, a month. This is something we need to recognize, talk about, and just basically pretty much all year long, right?
Oh, it is. And that's exactly what we do. Part of our mission is to raise awareness. We might push a little bit harder during this month, Suicide Prevention Month, on this day, World Suicide Awareness Day. And during May, which is Mental Health Awareness Month, we might push a little bit harder, but we never stop doing what we do. We never stop talking about mental health and mental wellness and mental illness.
So let's talk a little bit before we get into what you do there and what everyone kind of needs right now with what's going on in the world. You have been there for a while. Tell us a little bit about what brought you there, and then we'll get into a little bit. We started having a conversation before, which I love, about how we all need to take care of our mental health now, and what you do that helps you, as you said, feed your soul. So tell us what brought you to your position and how long you've been there.
Well, like most people, I was looking for a job, and I landed here. I honestly was not at that point in time aware of who NAMI was. At that point, 24 years ago, it was called the Scranton Alliance on Mental Illness. Since then, we have, actually, it was the Scranton Alliance for the Mentally Ill. And as times have changed and we've learned to speak a little bit more respectfully and person first language, our name changed from that to National Alliance on Mental Illness. We are an affiliate of a national organization. There are folks just like me across the country and in some foreign countries as well doing what I do. And that is provide support, education, and information to anybody who's been affected by mental illness. Here's the elevator speech. We have support groups, we have education programs, we get involved, in advocacy, not individual advocacy. We are not an advocate, but we can help people learn how to advocate for themselves, and we can, help people get connected to the resources that they need to get connected to. And we also, while we're a nonprofit, so we're not a political organization, but we do stand for mental health. And so any kind of legislation that has anything to do with mental health, we will advocate for that. And again, our education programs and our support groups are all for anybody who's been affected by mental illness. So we provide support for family members and for individuals living with mental illness. NAMI was created by, talking about fabulous women, you know, over 50, was created by families and primarily, you know, a couple moms, almost 45 years ago, who said, you know, what about us? Our children have serious mental illness, our adult children. We're learning about that. We want to learn more how to support them, and we want to learn how to take care of us. And that's really important, whether you are a caregiver to somebody with a chronic illness or a human being. You know, as you alluded to earlier, taking care of ourselves is so important. And NAMI grew out of that need for self-care. And so it's a big part of what we do here.
And that's a word, I mean, maybe it wasn't used as often, but you're seeing that a lot, and especially since the pandemic, self-care, which basically is taking care of yourself, but especially, I know in your work and due to what's going on, really mentally and emotionally, right? Because that is part of overall health. It shouldn't really be separate. It's part of who we are, and it can affect so much. And you know, we were talking before that you said not everything, like everything in life, there are different topics. You can't, it's not one size fits all for anybody. What works for you and what you like, what I like, is not necessarily going to work for someone else. But you said before, what I love, do something that feeds your soul so that you can become stronger, resilient, and kind of get away from all these stressors that are really bothering you. Like, I know that you, much like me, like birds, like bird
Mhm.
watching,
Yeah.
wine drinking, and kayaking. So how do you feel, like, when do you feel that really comes in handy for you, all these different things that you do for yourself?
You had said before about, you know, the stresses of daily life. When I talk about it in my work, when I talk about it, you know, in my life, I liken it to, you know, a backpack. Every day we carry this backpack around and we throw stones in it, you know, whether it's that bill that we don't have enough money to pay this month that we're worried about, if it's our loved one with an illness, if it's troubles at job, we're putting stones in that backpack. And some of them are little, some of them are boulder size, and we carry it every day, and it wears us down. Even if we have all small stones, 51-pound small stones weigh as much as one 50-pound boulder. It can wear us down. So we have to put it down sometimes. We may not be able to make it all go away, but we have to find a way to put it down. And while it's down, we can build our resilience. And that's another word of the day. That's a new word. And I love it because it's so hopeful and it's so inspiring. And it implies that we can recover from these things. We can figure out a way to manage the stress in our life, even if it's going to be chronic and it's always going to be there. We can become resilient and we can find a way to manage it. And to bring it back around, one of those ways is to put that backpack down and hop in that kayak, and because you don't want to bring a 50-pound backpack in a kayak.
No, you're in trouble then.
But whatever it is that you do, put it down for a while and go and do what makes you happy, whether it be hiking, biking. It might be therapy. It might be taking a nap. It's like you said, it's individual. Self-care isn't as heavy as we might think, and it's also not as lightweight as we might think. For some folks, getting a manicure and a pedicure is self-care, and that's wonderful, and that's feeding their soul. Some folks need more. Some folks, again, maybe need therapy or need the support groups that NAMI offers, or the education programs even that NAMI offers, and that's self-care as well. And that's what makes it so individual. Whatever allows you to put the backpack down, because while it's down, your body is recovering. It's building resilience. It's building its strength back up again. So when you pick it back up, that backpack, because you're going to have to, you're a little bit stronger, you're a little bit more refreshed, and you can face things a little bit better than maybe you were at the end of the day, or at the end of a long period of unrelenting stress.
Yeah. You said a bunch of things that I want to bring up. I love the fact that you said with the weight, and I kind of think of this with running because I run, I've done several races and I've never been fast and I'm getting slower. 12 miles at an 11-minute pace is still the same as 12 miles at a 7-minute. It's the same distance.
Yeah,
So when you
yeah,
talk about those boulders, I think it's important because I think some of us sometimes we have guilt or maybe even get guilted by people like it could be a bunch of small stones, right? So it
oh,
could be
yeah,
just everyday life, like, oh my gosh, my bills. Oh my gosh, my parents are aging and this is happening, as opposed to someone who's dealing with cancer or whatever. You shouldn't feel shame because it's like, well, because people get sometimes in that mode of, well, at least you have this, at least you have that. That's true. But I always think of, and I don't know if you were ever a fan of Ally McBeal on Fox years ago.
yeah,
I
yes,
wish I could remember the exact way she said it, but someone was kind of giving her a hard time about, why is everything all about you? And her answer was more or less just like, because this is the life I'm living, right? I'm not
yeah,
living anyone else's life. So
yeah,
while I can empathize and say, oh my gosh, I wouldn't want those troubles, I feel really bad, you still have your own. And it's still okay to say they're heavy and
yeah.
they're something I need to find a way to cope with.
You're absolutely right. And one of our, we have guiding principles for our groups. And one of the guiding principles is we don't judge anyone else's pain or struggles as more or less than our own. It's the life we're living, and it's all about our own perspective. If right now life is overwhelming for me, I might be living the same exact life as you, and you can deal with it. And there's a whole, series of factors and reasons that the experience might be different, but or the perspective might be different. But yeah, and I think living is stressful. If you don't experience stress on at least one stressor a day, whether it be being stuck in traffic or the your keyboard not working properly, one might, it's you're you're not living. We do, it's part of life.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's all about, you'll hear this, we always hear this a million times, right? We can't control what happens, but we can control how we respond to it.
Yes.
And I love what the other two things I wanted to pick up on you said about putting it down. It's not getting rid of it, right? You're not tossing it away. And when I do through my business, Laugh to Live, I do laughter yoga. I always use the quote from Milton Berle, laughter is an instant vacation. And a lot of people would say, oh, that's just silliness. And there's a quote from the Dalai Lama that says more or less, when I'm laughing, I'm not putting my head in the sand. I'm not burying it, making a joke of life. What I'm doing is taking the time to set my problems down so
Yeah.
I can recharge, I can reinvigorate. So whether it's, 5 minutes watching a funny video, 30 minutes watching a funny show, or doing like when I do my laughter yoga session, you will feel better. And you cannot think negative thoughts when you're laughing. You can't. And
No.
any of those negative Neds out there are like, oh, I bet you I could show you. Well, you can't. You just simply cannot. And so you're setting things down so that you can get refreshed, just like recharging a phone. So then you're ready to face things because
That's
life will never be smooth sailing completely, right?
yeah, yeah. And that's exactly what it's like, recharging your battery, recharging your phone. We need to recharge ourselves, and we need to figure out how to do that. I think it's helpful to identify the stressors in our life, and determine if we can lessen any of them, because sometimes managing them, sometimes recognizing that you're not good with time management, and acquiring some time management skills, or getting a better day planner might be helpful. So identifying the stressors in your life, identifying ways that you can manage them in a less stressful way is important. But there's always going to be something there, and the person who does not feed their soul, who does not find ways to put those stressors down, sometimes it's going to find themselves tired, worn down.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I want to, and I want to get this is going to take it a little more serious, but before we get there, I love also the idea of resilience. And this is where I don't think it should be controversial, but I feel like everything's controversial anymore. It's like, you like that color? What's wrong with you? You're too monochromatic. How dare you? I mean, it's,
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
we're getting almost comically ridiculous and sad, a sad way. But resilience is so important. And this is where, I mean, I think, from your perspective, my perspective, everybody might have a different take on this. And I feel like I taught 7 years part-time as an instructor in college, and I said I feel like a lot of the students need so much support, but it is on a sliding scale.
Mhm,
Not everyone's anxiety is crippling.
mhm,
So building up to handle things, I think, is so important. And then I feel like sometimes, even I'm getting, I'm 50, I can get a little curmudgeonly, that where do we know, and this is, I guess, is a more of a question for you, where do we know the line, and how do we go from helping people find the resources to be stronger and resilient versus coddling? I mean, because I just think of, like, social media and the news are two big stressors, right? And people have, I'll go through things and I'll read, oh, people blame the media, they blame, everybody else is to blame, but
mhm.
we aren't robots, right? We literally have to be able to set the phone down, to get off social media, to unfriend people, to block them, so that we can't just say, well, they made me this way or whatever.
Yeah.
So I mean, I just, like, some days I feel like, well, you can't just remove things so that they're not a problem, because the people who are at a little bit of a healthier place can handle them. So you can't just take things away. So where is the balance, or how do we strike that balance, I guess?
I think most of us want to achieve and be successful and be productive. I think it's part of being human. And if somebody finds themselves in a position where they're not doing that, I think supporting them and helping them see that they can indeed do it in little steps till they're at a point where they can take those steps on their own is helpful. It's, we all hear the stories of, I learned to swim because my dad threw me in, threw me off the dock. Maybe that works for some folks, and maybe everybody can learn to swim, but that's not going to work for everybody. So just pulling away all supports may not be helpful, even if we know that person could do it. I think taking them in baby steps to a point where they see that they can be successful. And then there may be folks who can't get to that point, and that's where, maybe some professional supports are important. If they're not able to get, get to that point, if they're not able to pick up those skills and get past those barriers that they may have for being productive, then they need, again, more professional supports, perhaps.
hmm But, well, the first part, what you said, offering support is important. And even maybe gently reminding people, like, well, hey, you know what? I turned off the news. Maybe you could try that. Because if it's really stressing you out, like, because I actually do know a lot of people, and I've said I'm going to stop doing it, and then I go back to it. But fortunately, I mean, I can handle it personally, but it does stress me out. Well, actually, it
Mhm,
makes me angry, and I end up screaming at the TV. But maybe just offering assistance, or even offering personal experience, and say, well, you know what, here's what I was going through,
mhm.
and this is what I did, and this is how it helped me. Because sometimes maybe people are embarrassed, or they just feel a little bit out of sorts, and sharing personal experiences, if people are open to it, can definitely, I think, help other people.
I it, Nami's very strong on storytelling, using our own experience to give hope and inspire others. So you are right. In the right settings, we also have to be cautious that if somebody is really struggling, we don't make it about ourselves. It's
Right.
about them. But I think we can know when that is. So, using our experience to inspire others is important. Using our experience and using our knowledge to give reassurance and give information to people is really important. I think we also have to accept that not everybody's going to take that reassurance and information. And we do have free will, and we have free will to be resilient and productive, and we have free will to be uh, miserable and unproductive. And that's, again, when there's not, I'm not talking about serious mental illness. That's a little bit different story. But uh, you know, when we give people information, we talk a lot about being cautious about giving advice, because advice can get dicey. We get resentful if people don't take our advice. They may get resentful if it seems like we're telling them what to do. But so we talk about giving information, giving reassurance. It can get better. And these are some of the things that people are doing to help it get better. They're shutting off the news. They're going for walks, sometimes providing practical help. Instead of telling somebody, shut off the news, if there's somebody who's close to you saying, let's go for a walk. And put your phone in your pocket. We had, helping them, because, and especially, I think we're somewhat fatigued now, but at the beginning of the pandemic, and just like, if you remember the days following 9/11, like, or any sort of big traumatic experience in our world, we tend to be glued to the news, and then we move away. Either we get tired of it, life begins to go on. Some folks find a harder time of picking the pieces up again. And so sometimes providing some practical support, some practical help, that saying, let's go for a walk. I've got 2 kayaks. Have you ever been kayaking? Come kayaking with me. I'll teach you how to do it. Or let's go for a walk, and there's a waterfall here. Have you seen it? And so, you're supporting them and you're giving them help, but you're not doing things for them. You're helping them figure out what they can do for themselves. And maybe next time, or maybe at some point in the future, they'll go for that walk by themselves. They'll see the value in shutting off that news and doing something else.
Yeah,
So
and you gave a few examples, but as we know, there's numerous things, right? I mean, taking, maybe even learning something new, taking a cooking class, or, trying something, going to a night where you're playing drums, steel drums, or like just trying something different. And, maybe it does take a friend saying, let's do this, let's try
yeah,
this,
yeah,
because it's a nice distraction, it's something different. And or maybe even getting into the habit of, okay, instead of 6 o'clock where I would normally be watching the news, now that's gonna be my evening walk time, or
yeah.
something like that. Yeah, I mean, those are definitely, and there's so many options out there of things people can do
There,
that are
there
super
are,
related.
there are. You had mentioned, your like laughter yoga practice, just yoga in general. We, especially, like, one of the positive things I think to come out of the pandemic is the increase in all of the organizations that are offering no cost outside events such as that. The Greenhouse Project in Scranton has, they host hikes, nature hikes at Lackawanna State Park. They host yoga in the park, and I believe they're all free or very, very low cost and affordable. And what a better way to feed your soul, to put that backpack down and check out of things for a little while, and perhaps make friends, because one of the best ways to make friends is to find common interests. So you don't know
Yeah.
what might come out of going on that hike.
Yeah. And your great examples you're giving too, that, I talked about this on another podcast about, like, and even with Mindy, the yoga instructor, nature therapy or forest therapy, this thing, the Japanese practice called forest bathing, where, again, and I can attest to this, and I know you probably, I'm sure you can too. Between kayaking, walking, hiking, or running in the woods, when I run in the woods versus running on the street, I mean, the trails are so peaceful. The
Yeah.
trees, there is just a sense of peace. And there is research to show it is so healthy for the mind and the body that just being in nature and having that sense of awe, there's research that says that awe, that gratitude, something larger than ourselves, really is just a wonderful feeling and a healthy thing to do, actually.
It is. I, if you ask me to go for a walk and you tell me we're going to walk down our street, I'm not interested, but yeah, take me into nature and I'll walk all day. I will. And there is that connection and there is that peace and there is that, like you said, that gratitude that we're a part of it. And it's something most of us can do, uh,
Yeah.
at no cost. You just need a decent pair of shoes and you can, there's parks in our community that are small. If you want to do a 10-minute loop around, uh, 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 but it's, you're still in the woods. Stayback Park up in Einan has a really nice little paved in the woods. You could do it in 10-15 minutes if you wanted to, or you can wander slowly and go around because there's, kind of puzzles together. There's a couple different paths that crisscross. You can be there for a while, or you can go off of that path and go follow other paths that take you out into the fields and the woods. But you can start with a 10-minute walk and build up to something bigger if thinking about a long walk is overwhelming or difficult. Start with something
Yeah.
small.
Yeah, and you mentioned, that a lot of the since the pandemic, a lot of places are offering, free workshops and things outside. But let's say as we get into colder weather, or if people don't want to leave the house, there's so many resources online too. I mean, you could watch a YouTube video on yoga or Pilates or
Mhm.
even laughter yoga. They're out there. So,
Yeah,
and I know it's always nice to connect with other people and be outside, but, knowing that that's a backup too. If someone can't bring themselves to leave the house, there's also some great things online that YouTube that could teach them something, and they could
yeah,
still do this activity that's going to be healthy for them.
yeah. Yoga with Adrian is she's on YouTube. It's no cost, and she offers beginner, all kinds of levels and all, whether it's relaxation yoga, rejuvenating she, you name it, she offers it. So yeah, and it's there and no cost. You just need to be able to access YouTube. There's a
Yeah.
lot of great apps that are available at little to no cost. Most of them have some free, uh, uh, free. My mind just went blank. Now I'm gonna laugh at
Content and
myself.
versions.
Yeah,
Yeah,
free
yeah.
access, free versions. I'm so sorry. It's Friday.
No.
Thank goodness
It's
it's Friday.
okay.
Um, and there, but some great apps. Headspace, Calm. I mean, all you have to do is do a Google search of mental health apps or relaxation apps, and some of them are really helpful. For sleep. If you have a problem with sleep, they'll guide you through a guided meditation to be able to relax better and fall asleep. So you don't have to be in front of YouTube. You can have your smartphone there and have that running. When I would have a problem sleeping, I had the Calm app has that sleep uh, guided meditation on it, and I would have it on my open on my phone. So if I woke up in the night and had a hard time falling asleep, I would just click that on and really not even get out of bed and click that on, and you have this nice soothing voice lulling you back to sleep. And then
Yeah.
there's some others that are, the paid versions have somebody, telling you stories, very calming stories in a very soothing voice. So
Yeah,
there's,
meditation is another very valuable. I know in Scranton this past, I think it was July and parts of August, they did a meditation by the Lackawanna River, and I went to two or three of those. And
yeah,
wow, how wonderful. You're combining. They also had someone, a musician, like a single musician each time. So you've got music, which of course we know music does wonders for our body, our minds, our mood. We've got the river, the flow of the river, and then the breathing. And she was breathing. I think it's called Breathe and Prosper. I think the woman who was leading it was guiding us.
Yeah.
So you have so many things wrapped up in one. You have the little ducks coming up on there. It was like nature, it's breathing, it's music. I mean, so many wonderful things all together there.
Yeah. 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 I agree. And you touched on something that we hadn't just now. Music, going back to that, feeding your soul, whatever works for you. When we do an education program, we do something called mental health first aid, and it's an 8-hour program. But one of the steps we talk about is self-care, and music, whether it's listening to music or playing music or writing music, or learning how to play a song it's another way of putting that backpack down and taking care of ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
uh,
So, so it's important to take care of ourselves, as we're saying, feed our soul. Now, before we wrap up, I definitely want to at least spend a little time in whatever you want to say, because it is a heavy topic,
mhm,
suicide prevention. So, we've been talking about self-care, and again, there is that scale. Like some people can manage a certain level of stress. Other people, maybe it's more for them, or, you're talking about serious mental illness. So there's a
yeah,
range, right? There's a
yeah,
range of people's needs and where they're at with their mental health.
mhm,
But when you're getting to suicide prevention, that's a
yeah.
serious, really serious level. What would you want to say about that? And maybe things that, your organization has learned or is doing to help in that.
Sure, sure. Yes. We, as you started out saying, we don't want to make light of suicide awareness and prevention by saying, go for a walk and you'll feel better. We're first part of this, our conversation really wasn't so much about that. Although I do believe good self-care on a daily basis can help us be more resilient, and is actually a form of prevention, but it's very, very early proactive or prophylactic prevention versus crisis response. If there's someone in your life that you are concerned about their mental health, if you know that they're struggling, whether you think that they may be considering suicide, or you just see that they're struggling and it's affecting their life, they're not just grumpy, they're maybe missing work, they're not taking care of themselves like they used to be, they're not answering phone calls, they're not keeping that monthly coffee date that you always had before, it's gone beyond the grumpiness and it's impacting their life. Reach out to them, talk to them, but don't just reach out and say, how are or don't just reach out and say, I love you, you're a good person. Have a conversation with them about what you're concerned about. Ask them how they're doing. How are you doing? How are you feeling? How are things going? And then talk about why you're worried about them. Not in a judgmental, not in a confrontational way, but how are you doing? I'm fine. I'm really worried about you because our last 2 coffee dates you canceled, and I know you've been missing a lot of work, and I'm worried about you. Is there something going on that I can help you with? And sometimes opening the door to that conversation for them can be very helpful, because we ask people, how are you doing? And we all expect people to say good, and we're satisfied with that, and we walk away and we say, oh, I checked in with them, they're doing good. But having the little bit more difficult conversation, and not being afraid of it. There is a great website, a great whole program effort out of Australia called Are You Okay? And it's www.ruuk, the letters R, the letter U, okay, .org.au, because it's out of Australia. And the whole website is about how to have that conversation with somebody who you're worried about. And they have campaigns throughout Australia promoting having those conversations with your workmates, with your significant others, with your family members, etc. But I advise everybody, take a peek at that website. They're very user friendly. They're very easy to follow. They're very matter of fact and simple. Just asking a person how they're doing and talking about things you're concerned about, but then become aware of some of the resources in the community. At the very least, NAMI. You can get us. Our website is www.naminepa.org. We have information on our website about suicide or crisis response. We have local resources in the area, local mental health, community mental health centers, as well as crisis response numbers. So I'm not going to give them all on this podcast. You can find that on our website. You can find that information out by calling us. We have resource cards. I'd be happy to mail anybody that reached out to us a packet of information. Our phone number is 570-342-1047. But being a little bit aware, giving that reassurance and information that I talked about before. How are you doing? I'm concerned about this. It can get better. These are the resources in the community where you can get help. Or how about if I come over and we'll look at your insurance network? Do you have an EAP program? Call the EAP number on the back of your insurance card. I'm always surprised at the people that don't think to do that. But when I think about it, when we're overwhelmed, we're not thinking clearly, and we're just kind of trying to deal with what we're dealing with right now and put this little fire out. We're not thinking about how to put the big fire out, or how to shut off the gas leak. Just put this fire out. And then so sometimes we need somebody outside of that situation to say, hey, do you have an EAP? Have you looked at your network of providers? I'll come over, because anybody who's ever tried to navigate their own healthcare network website knows it can be overwhelming. And somebody who's stressed, things are overwhelming for them. It's the thought of opening a website and navigating around all these different things might be overwhelming, and so they just don't do it. So providing that practical help that I talked about earlier, it can take all different forms depending upon what the person needs. Why don't we take a look at that and see who's in your provider? Who can you get an appointment with? Anybody? I'll go with you, or I'll be there when you call. What do you need from me? What kind of help can I give you? How can I support you? So offering that, and then again, offering, information on those resources. Let's look at the NAMI website and see what's on it. It could be as simple as that.
Yeah, and there's the Nationalnami, and I'm sure you have links to it sometimes too. I know I follow them on Instagram, and there's even guides about what to say, because like you said, I know you don't want to just say, "Oh, hang in there, it'll get better," because it may not, or they might be in such a serious place that is not enough. So maybe even some suggestions, right? There's some verbal cues or some kinds of things that can help guide your conversation with someone who's struggling.
If you look at our social media, our Facebook page and our Instagram, throughout this month, I posted several different, and there's like multiple graphics on the Instagrams of how to have those conversations. As a matter of fact, yesterday, I think it was just yesterday, we created one based upon the information on that "Are You Okay?" website on how to have that conversation and what to do. So everything that we just talked about, if you're out there in podcast land and you're not remembering it, just visit the NAMI website or the NAMI Instagram page, and it's all on there. How to have those difficult conversations. Having that difficult conversation can save a life. We sometimes think, what can I do? One person can do a lot. There is a motivational speaker who survived a suicide attempt by jumping off of the Golden Gate Bridge, and he tells the story of how ambivalent he felt about suicide when he was contemplating it, because people who do choose suicide, and I use that word very lightly because it's not really even a matter of choosing suicide. They don't, it's not that they want to die, they want to end the way they're feeling. And they don't know how else to end the way they're feeling. They want the pain that they're in, the psychological, emotional, and sometimes physical pain. They want that to stop, and they don't know of any other way to make it stop. So sometimes helping them see that there's other ways to make it stop can be helpful. But this man, his name is Kevin Hines, he talks about how the day he decided, he said in his head, if anybody approaches me, because he was so ambivalent about it, if anybody approaches me, I won't do it. If anybody approaches me and is kind to me and asks me how I'm doing, because he was crying, he was on the Golden Gate Bridge for 40 minutes, and I won't do it. And he said he's on the bridge, ugly crying, and a woman approaches him, and he said for a split second he thought, somebody cares, somebody noticed how much pain I'm in. And he uses a little bit humor in his story, because humor is okay as long as it's respectful. And he says this woman comes up to him, and as he's feeling hopeful, she says to him in a German accent, because she's a tourist, would you take my picture? And he imitates her, and so he does, and then he turns and vaults off the bridge, and he survived it, and he lived to tell the tale and to inspire others. But and then he goes on to share how as soon as his hands left that bridge, he thought, this, I don't want to do this. This isn't how I want to end things. How's my family ever going to know? So suicide, when people talk about there's nothing you can do, if somebody wants to die by suicide, they will. That's false. That's a rumor. It's not true. There are things, and we should always try to help people if we can. And sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes our help doesn't make a difference sometimes, but often we can. And knowing that there's things that we can do can empower us to reach out to other people that we're worried about.
Yeah. Well, that's a very powerful place to end. And I would just encourage everyone, unless there's anything else that you wanted to add, Marie, because I know that we could go on for a long time, but.
Yeah. No, I think we talked about a lot today. And I think if folks want more information about mental health, the resources, they can reach out to us. They can visit our website. There's our Instagram. There's a lot to learn just by visiting that. And if they want more information, they can give us a call.
Okay, great. So I will, when I post this to social media, I will include the phone number again for NAMI NEPA. And again, check them out on Facebook, Instagram, a wonderful website, all kinds of wonderful information. And the National NAMI, of course, has its own website, as well as if you're listening to this, because I know I have listeners outside of Scranton, there are numerous chapters of NAMI across the state, right, Marie? They're pretty much everywhere.
Across the country. We are an affiliate of a national organization, and we have affiliates all over. Yeah.
Yes,
If
I
you
meant to
go
say across
to,
the country. Yeah.
if you go to our national, just NAMI, www.nami.org, you'll see find support or find an affiliate. I forget exactly what it says, but find something, and a map will come up, and you'll literally find your state, and then a listing of all the affiliates in your state will open up.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. This has been Marie Onukiavage joining us from NAMI NEPA, another fabulous 50 as part of the fabulous 50s of September. So thank you so much for joining me. And remember, everyone, to feed your soul, not to get light again, but feed it. And then also make sure that you quench your thirst. Maybe have a glass of wine or something else that's nice, not too much, just the right amount. Drink a little bit of wine and laugh a lot. That's good for you. So thank you for listening. This has been another episode of Uncorked with Funny Wine Girl with me, Janine Luby, Funny Wine Girl. And I hope you'll join us again next week to listen. Take care, feed your soul, have a great day.
Bye.